The knock came just after midnight, timid and desperate against the cabin door. Jacob Fletcher set down his coffee and reached for the rifle that hung above the fireplace, not out of fear but habit. Nobody came calling this late unless something was terribly wrong. When he opened the door, he found a woman standing in the snow, her traveling dress torn at the hem, her face pale as moonlight. Behind her, wagon tracks led away into the darkness, already filling with fresh powder. "Please," she whispered, her breath forming clouds in the frozen air. "I have nowhere else to go." Jacob recognized her immediately. She was the mail-order bride his neighbor, Marcus Thornton, had sent for 3 weeks ago. The whole valley had been buzzing about it. Marcus, a wealthy rancher with land stretching to the horizon, finally finding himself a wife from back east. Jacob had seen her arrival, watched Marcus help her down from the stage with all the warmth of a man inspecting livestock. "Ma'am, what happened?" Jacob stepped aside, ushering her into the warmth. She moved past him, trembling, and stood near the fire with her arms wrapped tight around herself. "He said I wasn't what he ordered," she said, her voice hollow. "He said the photograph must have been someone else. Said I was too plain, too old, not the delicate flower he'd been promised. He gave me $20 and told me the stage leaves Tuesday, that's 5 days from now." She looked up at Jacob with eyes that had cried themselves dry. "I have no money to go back, no family waiting. I sold everything I had to come here." Jacob saw the truth of it written in every line of her face. She wasn't a young girl, perhaps 30 years old, with strong hands and tired eyes. She was handsome in the way winter landscapes are handsome, all clean lines and honest beauty, nothing frivolous or decorative. Marcus had wanted an ornament. He'd gotten a human being instead. "You can stay here," Jacob heard himself say, "until you figure out what comes next." Her name was Elizabeth Morgan. She told him over hot coffee and the rabbit stew he'd been saving for tomorrow. She'd been a schoolteacher in Philadelphia, orphaned young, unmarried by choice until the school closed and options narrowed to nothing. Marcus's advertisement had promised partnership, respect, a new life in the West. She'd believed every word. "I was a fool," she said, staring into her cup. "No," Jacob replied. "You were hopeful. There's a difference." The days that followed fell into an unexpected rhythm. Elizabeth insisted on earning her keep, and Jacob, living alone for 6 years since his parents passed, had forgotten how much easier life could be with another pair of capable hands. She cooked while he worked the horses. She mended his shirts while he fixed the chicken coop. They talked in the evenings. Long conversations that ranged from books she'd read, to the peculiarities of Montana weather, to the dreams they'd both tucked away in the corners of their hearts. Jacob found himself watching her when she didn't notice. The way she hummed while kneading bread. The fierce concentration when she read by lamplight. The sadness that sometimes crossed her face when she thought no one was looking. She wasn't delicate or decorative, but she was real in a way that made the cabin feel like a home instead of just a shelter. 3 weeks passed. The stage came and went on Tuesday, and Elizabeth made no move toward town. Neither of them spoke about it. Then one morning, over breakfast, she set down her fork and met his eyes with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I should leave," she said. "People will talk. A woman staying alone with a bachelor." "Your reputation." "I don't give a damn about my reputation," Jacob interrupted. "And I don't want you to leave." The silence that followed felt enormous. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Inside, the fire crackled and something fragile hung in the air between them. "Jacob," she said softly, "why did you let me stay, really?" He could have lied, could have talked about Christian charity or neighborly duty. Instead, he told her the truth. "Because when you knocked on my door, you looked like I felt. Like you'd been told you weren't enough. My whole life I've worked this land, built this place with my own hands. And it was never enough for anyone. Not for the girls in town who wanted someone grander. Not for my father who wanted a son with bigger ambitions. I'd been told 1,000 ways I was too simple, too quiet, too ordinary. When Marcus turned you away for not being what he wanted, I saw myself in that. And I thought, maybe two people who aren't what anyone else wants might be exactly what each other needs." Elizabeth's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You've never been too simple, Jacob Fletcher. You're the most substantial man I've ever known." "Then stay," he said, "not as a guest, not out of obligation. Stay because you want to. Stay and help me build something real here. I'm not asking you to be a wife, not unless that's something you'd want down the road. I'm just asking you to be my partner, my friend, the person who makes this cabin feel less empty." She reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were rough from work, warm and strong. "I want to stay, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because I've never felt more at home than I do here with you. These past weeks I've been more myself than I ever was in Philadelphia. You see me, Jacob, the real me, and somehow that's enough for you." "It's more than enough," he said quietly. "It's everything." Spring came early that year, melting the snow and bringing green back to the valley. By then, Elizabeth had moved her few belongings into the bedroom, and Jacob had started building an addition to the cabin. They worked side by side, planting a garden, training a new foal, talking about getting chickens and maybe a dairy cow. On a Sunday morning in April, with wildflowers blooming across the meadow, they stood before the circuit preacher in front of Jacob's cabin. No fancy ceremony, no elaborate dress, just two people who'd found each other in the unlikeliest way. promising to face whatever came next together. As they exchanged simple gold bands, Jacob looked at his wife and marveled at the strange mathematics of fate. Marcus Thornton had rejected Elizabeth for not being what he'd ordered, but she'd been exactly what Jacob needed, even before he knew he needed her. Sometimes life's greatest gifts came wrapped in rejection and midnight desperation. That evening, sitting on the porch watching the sun set over mountains that would never look lonely again, Elizabeth leaned her head against Jacob's shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For opening the door that night, for seeing value where someone else saw disappointment, for teaching me that being enough for the right person is better than being perfect for the wrong one." Jacob kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of soap and sunshine that had become as familiar as home. "I should be thanking you. You didn't just fill an empty cabin, Elizabeth, you filled an empty life." The stars came out one by one, bright and countless above them. Neither spoke for a long time. They didn't need to. They'd already said everything that mattered. They were home.